Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Happiness Journey with drdan podcast, where every journey is worth living. My name is Dr. Dan, and I'm your host for today's episode. I'm a cognitive behavior psychotherapist specializing in anger management issues, both court-appointed and private, marriage counseling using the EFT method, dissociative disorders, narcissistic personality disorders, depression, anxiety, dream analysis, and also provide life, business, and retirement coaching support. I provide individual one-on-one session and also do group settings. If you need any assistance, reach out to DMV therapy and coaching services at 301-325-1550. And our website can be found at lifecoach.drdanamzallag.com. Today, I'm very excited to have for our last and 10th episode of season 6, a very special guest and author, Rusty Williams. And just like every of my past episode, I will leave it up to the guests to properly introduce themselves, as no one can do a better job. Rusty, the floor is yours, my friend.
Well, thank you, Dr. Dan. I appreciate it. And it really is a pleasure being here. I'm going to divide this into two sections. Introduce myself, what I am and who I am. What I am is, well, as you said, I am an author. I'm currently working on my 6th book. In fact, I just finished one of the chapters, should be the next to last chapter, I hope, about half an hour ago.
Okay.
I'm a former paramedic. I was a paramedic in the 1980s, and that time what was the most violent and poor city in America. I am a retired police officer. I retired after 25 years as a detective. And in 2008, I was ordained into the Christian ministry. There was a brief overlap of when I was a detective and an ordained minister, and the joke in the police department was, as long as Williams doesn't confuse Miranda rights and last rights, everything will be okay. I'm happy to say that hadn't happened.
Good.
I am also a clinical hypnotist. I am a volunteer with our local police department in the community. I volunteer as the police chaplain here. And I am a guest on Dr. Dan's podcast right now.
That's, I guess, the biggest accomplishment, right?
Who I am, yeah, but so far, this is it so far. Who I am is that was the easy part. Who I am is a little more difficult. I am a person who is living with the diagnosis of a spinal cord tumor. It's in my lower back at the level of the 3rd lumbar vertebrae. It's left me disabled. First and foremost, I am a husband and a father. I have a beautiful wife inside and out and 2 wonderful children. I'm going to be a grandfather in a couple months for the first time, and we're expecting twins, so I can't wait for that.
Congratulations, Grandpa.
And thank you. And I would call myself a grateful struggler who loves life so much that I work on being the best version of me every day.
Beautiful.
And that's my story, and I'm sticking with it, Dr. Dan.
Oh, that's the only story I could think about. Now, tell me how and when did you get diagnosed with this cancer?
It was in December, the very first week of December of 2009. I had been having, every cop, you don't get through 25 years as a cop without back problems. Every cop has either neck, back, whatever kind of problems. And I was having back problems the previous summer. I started tripping and falling. The pain in my back was unlike back pain I've had in the past. Can you hold on 1 minute?
Go ahead, please. Well, they just call coming in, ladies and gentlemen, so just be patient. And Rusty's going to come back to us right now. Just give him 1 more second.
Now I'm here.
Okay.
I just,
so much.
I turned everything else off. My wife has the dogs. My wife has the dogs in the bedroom. So they're not going to bother me. I have a sign on the door, so that's not going to do anything. And the one thing I didn't do is unplug the phone.
Yes.
So you might hear that going off in the background.
Not a problem. Background is good.
So a little back, but this shows that we're live and it's real, and we just roll with the punches and go through whatever it is that we have to go through and get through life with.
Exactly.
So I was falling a lot. I was in a lot more pain than I had been previously. I had a pinched nerve in my back, pinched sciatic nerve.
Yes.
And this was different. The pain was different. The feeling was different. I had periods of incontinence of bowel and urine. So I went to our family doctor and I said, hey, doc, I need a referral to go to a chiropractor again.
Okay.
He ran some tests and he said he didn't like what he saw. or whatever the physical tests were. So I said, look, just do me a favor, get an MRI. The MRI is fine. I'll write a referral to a chiropractor. Got the MRI technician said, your doctor wrote stat on this. He'll call you with the results. Dan, later that night, it was about 9 o'clock. My wife was a high school teacher. She's grading papers. The phone rang just like it did just a few minutes ago, the house phone. And it was my doctor. He was calling. It was 9 o'clock at night, office hours. And I saw, you can tell if it's a business phone number or a personal phone number. Well, the caller ID had his name, but it was certainly not the business. It was calling from home. Okay. And he said, Rusty, I don't know how to tell you this, but you have a tumor in your spinal cord.
Oh, geez. Okay.
And everything after that was like Charlie Brown's teacher with a wah. I didn't hear anything other than tumor in your spinal cord, except he said, you need another MRI with contrast. We need to get you to a neurosurgeon. You need to get a referral, initial evaluation from a neurosurgeon as soon as possible. And that started my journey. That was December 2nd of 2009, December 3rd of 2009. The next day I went in, told my sergeant that, I needed to go get an MRI. And that was the last day I worked as a police officer. You can't, they allowed me to work light duty and do paperwork. So I had enough time to get my 25 years in. But certainly if you're tripping and falling and you have that kind of pain and your legs go out, you can't work as a police officer. So that started my journey back in December of 2009.
So since then, how long did it take you to go through the whole treatment of chemotherapy and so on and so forth? Or did you do chemo, or was it or?
Here's the unique thing about these kind of tumors. It's considered an orphan disease because they're so rare. There's no research into them. So the only treatment that they had at the time was what they called radical gross resection. Basically, they open you up and they try to remove the tumor. Unfortunately, my type of tumor, the type of tumor that's growing in my spinal cord and the location of it, has it entangled in the cord itself.
Right. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So if they were to go in and try to remove it, I would be paralyzed.
Okay.
So it's considered inoperable and untreatable. Unfortunately, the research that's been done, the tumor is, we have to assume benign because I've been living with it since 2009. Unfortunately, if it gets hit with radiation, these type of tumors tend to become malignant and they migrate to the brain.
Okay.
So there's not a whole lot of, and chemotherapy, a lot of it doesn't pass the blood-brain barrier.
Right.
So right now so they put me into what's called palliative care. It's not hospice, but it's comfort care.
Okay.
So everything went to pain management. Once surgeons here, they can't cut you, they cut you loose because you're not of any good to them. So everything has been palliative care, pain management, and things like that since then.
But have you had any symptoms since 2009, Rusty, that were kind of like recurrent, like you had before you knew that you had a tumor, like not balance?
Yes.
Etc. So the pain management, did they give you any pills to be able to manage also other symptoms?
So my symptoms have been getting progressively worse. When I was first diagnosed, it was just pain. I now have foot drop in both feet. So my feet just kind of hang down. Okay. I started walking with the cane, and now I've transitioned to forearm crutches. Okay. As far as the pain side of it goes, and you can appreciate this, and this is how I got into clinical hypnotherapy. I have an intrathecal pain pump implanted in me that sends medication right into my spinal cord. I also have a spinal cord stimulator that kind of tricks the nerves in my brain from sensing pain sensations, and it kind of scrambles it. So I feel like an electrical buzz in my back. Okay. But as it was getting worse for the 5 or so years after I was diagnosed, I was on 7 different pain medications. 7 different medications, including psychotropic medications, because apparently they help other medications work better. I was on some of the big ones, and I had a choice. I could either be in pain, not take the medication and feel somewhat normal, or take the medication, be out of pain, but be, just laying around the house all day. My wife, I don't know if you're married, Dan, but I've been married. This is my second marriage. And this wife has trained me really well. We get along so much better when I do what I'm told. And my wife was looking for alternatives to all this medication I was on. She wanted her husband back, if not physically, at least the emotional part of me. And she saw an ad in a magazine for hypnosis for pain management. And she said, we're going to go do that. I said, I was a cop for 25 years. I can't be hypnotized. And plus, this is all BS. I don't want to quack like a duck. I'm not going to cluck like a chicken. I put my foot down, Dan. I said, I am not going to get hypnotized. I'm the man in the house, right? I'm going to put my foot down. Yeah, so about a week later, I found myself in the waiting room of the hypnotist office. Again, when I do what I'm told, we get along so much better. And here's what is amazing from that experience. All that hypnotist did was work with me to relax. You know, when you're so tense and so stressed and everything is bottled up, it magnifies everything. Mm-hmm. We just worked on progressive muscle relaxation, was the induction. And all we did was work on relaxation techniques, nothing to do with pain. And I had a timer set, a reminder on my phone when I was to take medicines. I was taking 7 a.m., 11 a.m., 3 p.m., 5 p.m., 7. I was taking medicine around the clock. And this was in the afternoon. And on the way home, my wife said, we're late for your 3 o'clock, because Elissa, my wife, would be the ones who would give me my medication, said, we're late, how do you feel? And that was the first time in years I wasn't thinking about my pain. It wasn't that I wasn't in pain, but I wasn't so focused on it that it was consuming me. And I thought to myself, yeah, I guess it is time to take that, but I'm really not thinking about it. Second session, a week later, we worked on a specific technique where I actually dialed down the pain. I imagine a control panel in front of me, and I literally, as in a volume on a stereo, the old stereo knobs back in the 80s when we all had those big stereo systems, I literally turned down the pain. And that got me off of from the 7 medications down to just 2 medications. And one of them I use a pill cutter and I cut it in half. So that helped me so much that I decided that I wanted to give back and became a certified hypnotist, specializing in pain.
Taking all this medication, what kind of impact it had on your liver? Because the liver can only take so much when it comes to processing all those chemical ingredients. Did you have any issue with the liver later on?
I have fatty liver now, and my liver enzymes were through the roof for those 4 years. Now that I'm off of them, my liver enzymes, I still have fat. I think once you have a fatty liver, you have a fatty liver, but my liver enzymes are right back to where they should be.
So now can you walk? No, because I saw you when you went to go pick up the phone, you didn't seem to have any difficulty in walking. So
as the day, I walk pretty much okay. I do use forearm crutches if I'm going out anywhere. Like, I don't know if you saw, I kind of used, when I was going back to get the phone to turn it off, I used the chair, then I grabbed, I have places through the house where I know I can at least hold on to, because I have fallen numerous times, because when the legs go out, it's unexpected. And I do have numerous concussions. And so I have what's called serial concussion syndrome on top of that.
Okay.
So I see a neuropsychologist and I get evaluated once a year with that test that takes 3 or 4 hours, and I have to try to remember things and put things in order and do that. And I do that once a year. So
do you hypnotize yourself?
Yes, I practice. So I practice self-hypnosis. I'm a big believer in that. Every client that I have, I teach them that skill. One of the things about hypnosis, and I'm not knocking any medical field, but I remember when I was going to the chiropractor, and maybe your listeners, some of them have gone and can appreciate this. When you go to a chiropractor says, well, I'll see you 3 times this week, and we'll see you 3 times a week for the next month. Then we'll see you twice a week for the next 2 months. Then we'll see you once a week. And you're adding up in your head how much this is going to cost.
Yes.
My goal as a hypnotist was to get the client on their own as quickly as possible and tell them that they don't need me anymore. Okay. So I would teach them self-hypnosis techniques. And one of the things as important, or for me, it's been more important, I work with mindfulness. Okay. I'm a big believer in mindfulness, and mindfulness has really helped me accept my situation, because for the longest time I fought it and I didn't want to accept it. And the concept is, you're probably aware in DBT, radical acceptance. When I accepted it at a radical point where I said, as I kept trying to avoid my diagnosis, as I kept trying to avoid the pain, as I kept trying to resist everything that this brought on, and I focused on everything I lost, the paradox is that once I accepted it, it no longer had any control over my life.
Mhm.
So now I experience pain, and by using mindfulness, the pain is still there. I'm not making believe that all of a sudden my spinal cord is no longer damaged and there's no more pain, but the suffering has been taken away.
Oh, I see, I see. But
So I don't.
yeah, go ahead. Sorry.
So suffering for me is when we attach a negative emotion to whatever negative experience we're having. For me, that's where suffering comes in. And once I was able to accept this, it's just being what it was. It wasn't a horrible thing. It wasn't, why God, why did this happen to me? It's just something that happened. Once I accepted that and stopped attaching the anger, the resentment, the guilt, everything that was, I couldn't be the husband that I used to be. I couldn't be the father to my children that I was. So there was a ton of guilt I was dealing with. You said you specialize in anger management. Yeah, I had a lot of anger back then. Once I was able to not attach those emotions to the pain I was feeling, the pain is now just something I experience. Like if I'm thirsty, if it's too hot outside, if it's too cold outside, I don't suffer with that. I just experience it. And so using mindfulness and self-hypnosis in tandem has really helped me just live with what I live with without being absorbed in it, without being upset with it, and being able to live my life the best, and again, the best version of me I can be.
So would you say that being self-aware of the situation brought you to being mindful? Because now instead of fighting your diagnosis, you learn to accept it. And by accepting it, you learn to live your life around it.
Exactly. I lived my life around it. I lived my life through it. And it's just something I experienced. When I was going through seminary, we had a block of instruction on contemplative meditation. Mm-hmm. Dr. Dan, I don't know if you meditate. I tried meditating. This was the worst block of instruction in seminary, worse than Greek, worse than Hebrew. If I took a pen and jabbed it in my ear a dozen times, it would be less painful than trying to get, as the Buddhists would say, an empty mind. It was impossible. So I had this connotation of mindfulness of sitting with my legs crossed, with my hands up like this in some yoga position, and I'm humming and nothing's in my mind. And what I learned in mindfulness is it's literally becoming aware of what you're experiencing without attaching a positive or negative connotation to it. Mm-hmm. And so by doing that, I can sit here right now and I can become aware of and I haven't thought of it before this, what the shoes feel like on my feet. They were there all the time, but I can become aware of that. So if I can become aware of that, and I'm not saying it's a good feeling or a bad feeling, I can become aware of the pain I'm feeling right now in my lower back that's shooting into my butt and down my left leg, but I don't have to be consumed. It's just something I experience. So it's helped me accept the situation I'm in without attaching all those feelings to it. And like you said, accepting it in such a radical way that I live my life, not by ignoring it. I can't make believe it doesn't exist, but I can live my life around it and I can choose what I focus on. I can choose to be happy. I can choose to be grateful. And gratitude has helped me immensely in this journey. When I think of things, what I'm grateful for, instead of what I've lost, it's helped me with a sense of joy in my heart that it's just, like I said, I live my life every day. I love life every day. I wake up every day with an attitude of gratitude.
Beautiful. You said earlier, Rusty, that since 2009, of course, it has grown to be even like the symptoms gone even worse with the type of pain. Does it mean that you have to amp up more the self-hypnosis? You have to do more of the meditation to be able to kind of not reduce the pain, but kind of be able to live through that pain?
I use the same self-hypnosis technique. If it ain't broke, don't fix it, that kind of adage. So I do the same technique. I close my eyes, I imagine that. But what I use more of is the mindfulness part of it. And I'm gratefully mindful and I'm mindfully grateful. And so I use mindfulness more and more. And instead of intentionally setting aside 10 minutes to practice mindfulness morning, noon, and night, or however long I was practicing it, I find myself being mindful. Instead of it becoming something I have to go out and seek to do, it's just something that has become me. So if we take the dogs for the walk, I'm mindful of what I see instead of just taking everything for granted like I used to do. I become mindful of my surroundings. I become mindful of who I'm with. So I practice mindfulness, if not more frequently at a deeper level, that it's become really a part of who I am.
Well, I mean, it's not a lot of people. And do you think that because of you taking the classes as a clinical hypnosis, that helped you change your mindset and your perspective? Because not everyone had that kind of luxury, Rusty. No one was able to take action to whatever diagnosis they had, medical diagnosis, for them to say, okay, I think meditation will be, or self-hypnosis will be the best solution for managing my pain. Now, for others who are going through like similar challenges, what would you recommend them to do? Because obviously they don't have that same capability as you do, or training as you do.
Sure. Oh, I fought it. I fought this. I told you, I fought my wife. I'm not going to go through this. And yes, if not for hypnosis, I would have never learned about the benefits of mindfulness. I thought it was all that woo-woo stuff. And, I'm a 25-year cop. I'm not going to be into, if you told me 10 years ago, 15 years ago, that I'd be talking about mindfulness, I had a national radio show, and the title of the show was Thinking Hypnotically, Living Mindfully. Mm-hmm. And I would have told my guests, and I tell my listeners, years ago, I would have told you were crazy if you told me I'd be talking about mindfulness. For your listeners, for me, it all starts with gratitude. Once I'm able to focus on what I have and be grateful, wake up every morning, I look around my room, I take an inventory. There are people that don't have bedrooms. There are people right now, your listeners aren't one of them. There are people right now that don't have access to the internet. There's people right now that don't have access to electricity, that don't have a home, that don't have a caring partner like I'm so fortunate to have, that don't have a family. So I take an inventory of what I'm grateful for. And then I sit with that. And that's where the mindfulness comes in. And this isn't something you have to be in a quiet room. It's not something you can practice. Anyone can practice. I don't recommend it while you're driving. So if anyone's driving right now, here's the lawyer version. Do not practice mindfulness when you're driving. But you can really practice mindfulness anywhere. And by first taking that inventory of what I'm grateful for, then I can start literally being with it, seeing it for what it is, and experiencing it just there in that moment. And as I focus on that, I'm not focusing on the pain. I'm not focusing on what I don't have. I believe it was, maybe you're familiar with his work, a psychologist or psychiatrist out in California by the name of Michael Yapko. And I followed he was big into hypnosis, and he had a saying, what we focus on, we amplify in our experience.
Correct, yes.
It's like taking a flashlight in the room you're in. If you shine it on one thing, everything else is still there, but you're only focusing on that one thing. Where if you throw the light switch on and you can take a look at everything else around you, and it's done by intention. I mean, this is something, I still have crappy days. Look, I'm not trying to say that every day I wake up and I'm rah-rah and I'm in a great mood. There's days I wake up and I'm really feeling like crap. Mm-hmm. And but slowly but surely, if I can force myself to think of one thing I'm grateful for, then I can see that what does that lead to? I'm grateful right now to be a guest on your podcast. Well, the only way I can do that is through this MacBook Pro that I have sitting in front of me. I'm grateful that I had enough money saved up that I was able to buy a laptop.
Yes.
So now I can be grateful for that. And by thinking about that, now I'm not thinking about the pain, now that I'm mentioning it, that's going down my leg right now, because I don't know if you can, I'm kind of sitting on my right cheek right now. So my left cheek's up in the air. So that's a way that really anyone with no formal training can practice mindfulness. It doesn't have to be, and I'm not saying there's anything wrong with mindful meditation. God bless those people that can do it. I mean that. I'm just not one of them. So I practice mindful meditation, and my meditation is a way to practice mindfulness in the little tiny things that we so often take for granted. So that's one of the best ways your listeners can practice mindfulness, is just be aware of what they weren't aware of before. How does the collar, if they're wearing a shirt, what does that collar feel like right now? What does it feel like against their neck? That feeling, that collar's been there the entire time. that they had that shirt on.
That's true.
But we discount that feeling because it's not important to us. But if we can bring our minds to focus on these little things, and you can go right down your body. I have a wedding band on. I don't think about it. But now that I'm thinking about it, what does this wedding band feel on my ring finger?
Mhm.
So, and this is an easy way to ease into mindfulness without thinking I'm doing it wrong. I have to set aside 20 minutes in a quiet room and put on that woo-woo music and all that. So that's one way your listeners can certainly practice mindfulness. And I promise you, within a day or two, it becomes a habit. It becomes something to look forward to. And that gratitude cycle starts increasing, and it just takes off from there.
You know, it's interesting what you're saying, Rusty, because that reminds me of one of the documentaries that I watched on TV about the jungle, and there's like a group of zebra that crosses a river, and they wait for one of the zebra to be attacked by a crocodile, and then when they see that the crocodile is busy eating that zebra, all the others crosses the river, because they know that this crocodile is going to be focused on that zebra, and they have no danger to be able to cross that river without any repercussion. So that makes some sense. It's metaphor, even though it can be a bit drastic for the victim. It's interesting to see how the mind works, because if you put a lot more attention on, let's say, the color of your shirt, what that color brings to you, does it bring you smile, does it bring you this, whatever it is, people wear clothes because it represents what they are attracted to.
Sure.
Color. No one's going to buy a shirt that they hate a color for. It doesn't make any sense. But they buy things that they feel proud, more confidence, whatever it is. So that's interesting what you're saying in terms of focusing more, even if it's the little things that we all take for granted, but you put more positive emphasis on, because you feel that this, if I don't put emphasis on the little things, I'm going to put emphasis on the things that really brings me down. So you're changing the angle, which helps you being more mindful, which is a strategy that a lot of people don't know how to adapt. So kudos to you, Rusty.
Well, thank you. And it's not something that comes naturally at first. Mm-hmm. But as you learn, and you can appreciate this, neurons that fire together, wire together. And it really is that rewiring of your brain to create those neural pathways, so that now it no longer becomes a conscious thing. It just becomes who you are, and you're looking for reasons to be grateful. Mm-hmm. You're looking for opportunities to offer a random act of kindness. You're looking for opportunities for a challenge even. And it just creates this mindset, and it literally rewires your brain, as you could give courses on. And I only know you've forgotten more than I'll ever know about that. But that's the part I remember, that neurons that fire together, wire together, that we do create these neural pathways, and we can rewire our brains to think in a different way, not ignoring the stuff that's there, but focusing on the stuff that we can make important in our life. And it really is a choice.
Well, have you heard about the story from Dr. Eben Alexander, the neurosurgeon who had a near-death experience?
Yes.
He went, and he was actually on Oprah Winfrey.
Yes.
And himself, he never really believed in the afterlife until he experienced it himself. I think he went through like meningitis, a brain issues there. And I think he was more, when he explained his story, and he said about how being so close to death allowed him to be able to start taking things less for granted. So he was appreciating things more. He was spending more time with family. He was doing more and more things that are feeling what he feels today, and not about, this is stupid to think this way, or this is stupid about to really appreciate like a glass of orange juice. But now, because we have the taste buds that all of us takes for granted, those who have lost the taste, for them, they have no pleasure eating food or drinking anything because they don't taste anything. So we have to start looking at all that in a different angle, and that will change people's perspective and mindset.
Absolutely. And as ashamed as I am to say this, I believe in full transparency, and I believe there's strength in vulnerability. So I'll be vulnerable here, and I'll be completely transparent. If not for this tumor in my spinal cord, I don't know where I'd be. I was going 100 miles an hour. I had all plans for what I was going to do in life. And this tumor slowed me down, not just physically, but it slowed me down spiritually. Mm-hmm. And when I was working at the church, when I was ministering at the church, I would certainly give sermons on how important it is to just what you said. Don't take things for, I could preach it.
Mhm.
Was I really living it? And it wasn't until this freaking tumor in my spinal cord, it was like 2x4 therapy. You know, I got hit over the head with a 2x4, like wake up, knucklehead.
Mhm.
And if not for this tumor, I can say that I doubt I would be where I am emotionally, spiritually today. But isn't that a shame that it takes something like this for someone like me? And I would beg your listeners to please consider this, what Dr. Dan just said, especially in this time of COVID. So many people have lost their sense of taste or smell, and some of them might not get it back. To take these things for granted, don't wait until there's a life-changing diagnosis or prognosis in your life before you really look around and are grateful for those things in your life that you have, instead of worrying about those things in life that we don't have. And I think that's where true happiness comes, is when we consider what we have instead of focusing on what we've lost, in my case, what I've lost, or what we don't have.
That is beautifully said. And I hope that the listeners out there can actually take this and really feel your words. Because again, some people will say, well, you know, it's since I'm not dealing with any medical issues, you know, I'm going to continue doing what I am or doing what I'm doing right now. And they don't really think into the present. They really
Yes.
focus much into the future, but the future is not guaranteed, Rusty. I mean, come to think of it, we can die anytime.
Yep.
You know, we don't know our destiny. The only thing we can do is live today, like there's no tomorrow, but forget about the past, because the past is already done. So that again are very, very wise words. But on that note, that is all the time that we have for today's podcast. And I do appreciate you taking the time out of your very busy schedule to join us. And thank you again, Rusty, for participating and inspiring our many listeners with your incredible story. Now, we hope that you've all enjoyed today's episode. And I'm very excited about the many upcoming guests that we have scheduled for season 7 of the Happiness Journey podcast, filled with inspirational stories, just like the one that you listened to today. Now, here are some concluding words of wisdom. Larry Page, the co-founder of Google, once said, "It is often easier to make progress on mega ambitious dreams. Since no one else is crazy enough to do it, you have the little competition. So when you see that your dreams are super scary, take time to analyze them and pursue them with all your heart. Since you are the only one on that path of uber financial success, no one is there to take a piece of your action. As there's no competition, there's no fear to reach your goals on your own time. Just make sure to not scream your seed idea to the world until the world experiences your idea in action. Do it like the great white shark in the deep blue sea, attacking its prey. It never let anyone see it coming." My name is Dr. Dan Emzlag, and you may all keep pursuing your amazing journey in life.